Oh, I actually had people ask me. Yeah.
Huh?
I've had a few people ask me if it was going to be recorded, so that's good.
Excellent. Great. All right, folks. Welcome, everybody. My name is Hema. Troy and I have been hosting this group for, almost 8 months now. We've kind of grown this community, and we're hyper-focused in underwriting, multifamily, commercial real estate, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we have our pleasure to host a special guest, Leslie and Kelly. So I'll introduce them here momentarily. But before we do that, I do want to remind everybody that I am recording this, and I will share that recording if you registered, and we'll probably share it as well to a larger audience. But if you have any questions throughout, just go ahead and unmute, ask the question. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, just drop it in the chat box, and Matt and Troy will moderate. But we want to make this as interactive as possible. So feel free to just jump on and ask your question. Our intent is for you to gain some knowledge and be able to sharpen your pencil while you're underwriting. All right, without further ado, I do want to introduce Kelly and Leslie. And I do have to give a shout out to Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for introducing me to Leslie. We've been collaborating for the last couple of weeks on a deal, and just the whole experience from beginning to end, from the initial conversation to the estimates they provided, to helping me understand how this is such a value add strategy for any property that has RUBS, or where the owner is paying for the utilities in water and sewer, that I felt it was so important that we would share that with everybody, so all of you could gain this knowledge as well and be able to apply it. But Kelly and Leslie have been in this business for combined over 20 years. They're both super passionate about the preservation of water and the resources in our world and in this country. And collectively, they've saved their clients over $3.2 million, which, one of the stats they provided, it equated to almost 430 Olympic size pools, or something to the degree of almost 400 gallons, $400 million of water. And I could have messed that statistic up, but it is a lot of water. And most importantly is the money they save their clients. So with that, Kelly and Leslie, do you mind saying hi really briefly?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was such an incredible introduction, and Leslie and I are so honored to be here. So just to touch on that, my name is Kelly Stinson. You may have heard of my nickname throughout our industry. It is #ThePottyPrincess. And that is because it is around everything water conservation related to, reducing those expenses on your property. And somehow I didn't come up with this nickname. Somehow I garnered that nickname through a colleague in the industry, and it just stuck. And especially last year, when most of us were behind the screen like we are tonight, that particular hashtag actually proved to be a fantastic opportunity for us to use as a tool to push education out on social media. So I'm not offended if you don't remember my name, but you might remember the nickname. And I've been in the industry now for about 20 years, and I've been with SAS now for close to 4 years. And my personal platform is water and energy conservation. So I was introduced into SAS, and that just became a natural fit for me to be able to get up every day and know that I'm making a difference and impacting our environment. But, the value to our clients here at SAS is the fact that we are significantly reducing those expenses, and we are boosting those asset values, which means better distributions. And as a multifamily investor myself, it is really, really important that we keep that cash flow strong on those properties. And then I have Leslie, who is my business partner at SAS, and I'm going to turn it over to Leslie for her to run her introduction.
I can figure out how to unmute. Hello, everybody. Like Kelly said, I am her business partner. We've worked together 15 plus years in certain arenas and certain parts of our life together. So we know each other, we trust each other. She is very passionate, and I know this is supposed to be about me, but she's so passionate about this, and she's just brought so much. I guess I never realized the world out there of water conservation. I always knew about it. I've always, heard about it, but I've never understood it like I have through the eyes of Kelly. She's really taken it to the next level, where not only is she's taking that as her personal platform, but she's helping investors in a way that I think it's pretty exciting to be a part of this. So I am not the potty princess. I do not have a nickname. So I will just
Not
ride
yet.
Kelly. I'm fine with that. I like being in the background, but like I said, we're nationwide. We're all over the place. We're based out of Dallas, Fort Worth. So, but that, we could throw a rock at the Dallas Fort Worth airport, the international airport. So we feel really blessed to be where we are, positioned where we are, so we can help anybody anywhere. Obviously, LinkedIn has been a huge tool for us because we're able to scale many people that we would have never had the chance or the time to jump on a plane and go meet all these people. So thank you for, letting us be a part of your LinkedIn. Hopefully we can be as educational. Sometimes we can maybe be entertaining for you as well. But if, we would love to be connected to you that way and still work with you and educate you moving forward any way we can through LinkedIn. So,
No,
and
that's
Emma
great.
has been a blessing too. And Ryan, thank you so much for introducing me. You were right. She is a rock star. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, ladies. And so for a little expectation management, especially if you just showed up, we've done the introductions, we kind of did the administrative stuff. What I'm about to do really quickly, 'cause for me, it was important to see like, okay, so what? Like, why is this important and how does it apply to underwriting? And then we're gonna start with why, and then I'm gonna hand it back to Leslie and Kelly to then discuss what is this all about in the process, and then go a little bit into their numbers and how they achieve their estimates, because I think that's the level of detail that I would want to know if I was underwriting. So with that, I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to actually bring up a deal that I've presented on this call before. As a matter of fact, last month we had Adam Labar, an experienced operator an underwriter who we were working through the underwriting of a distress asset and how you can do that. I'm going to pull up one of those underwriting tools that I used that day. And the intent is to kind of not touch anything. Let me go. There we go. Not touch anything that was done before, but highlight just the returns. This is the portion of this distressed asset that is underperforming, that the portion that took me from acquisition until I got it stabilized, not the portion of once I started operating it as stabilized. So the returns look something like this: 13% IRR, negative 5.5 cash on cash return. Again, this hasn't been stabilized yet, so this is normal. An annualized return of 16.4 and an equity multiple of 1.9. Not too shabby, except very little cash on cash return. So if you're underwriting with a situation like this, where there is the ownership is actually paying for the utilities, and you're implementing a huge value add strategy, this is something to consider. So but before I go to that page, I want to show you, this is a PDF that you'll receive from Kelly, from Leslie, from their company. And there's a lot more information, like specific to the, down to the detail of each product, the quantity that you'll use, and they'll get into all of that. But I want to just hyper focus really briefly on two numbers. One is the total cost of doing this investment. So I'm going to go back to my underwriting model. I got to adjust my page here. And if you've never used this model, it is actually a free one from Lone Star Capital. Not to give them a shout out, I'm not an affiliate. I'm not an affiliate of anybody, but it is free. And we've been using it for a while, and I thought I would just pull it up. So just like every model, you'll have you'll have your unit mix, your income information, your expense information, and then you are making assumptions here on your lending, your stabilization assumptions, and this is where I'm going to make a change. And then your stabilized assumptions once you've gotten it to a stabilized piece, and then how to exit and your assumptions there. So I mentioned in the previous page that it was 10 point, let me go back, 10.12, so $10,000, 120 in CapEx. So my original plan was $100,000. So just so that you can see the difference, I'm going to add 10,120. And if you can't see the page, please let me know, because I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole and then you guys are not see it. So do let me know if you can't see what I'm showing you. So I just added $10,120 to the CapEx budget. And the other number I wanted to point out, so I'm going to go back to their Excel sheet, is this total money saved. So based on their assumptions and their estimates, which they're going to walk us through, we are expected to save $13,782 just year one. So I'm going to take, this is the historical rate that I use for my underwriting for this property, which includes water and electricity, but I'm going to add, correction, I'm going to subtract the savings from this strategy. So I should see a lowering of my total utility expense by that $13,000. And then I should also, because I underwrote to implementing RUBS, you should see a reduction here in my revenue. And that's a good thing, because the expenses are lower, so I'm not collecting as much in RUBS. So those were the only two inputs that I made, and one that was automatically calculated. Hopefully everybody's following thus far. But what I want to bring you back to is the impact of that right there. Originally, I started, and I wrote this down right as we were doing the introduction, we were at 13% IAR, like flat. So that is an increase of 1.8% IAR. The cash on cash return went from 5.5 negative to 5. So that's an increase to the right side, or the good side, of 5%. In this case, they're still both negative because that's just the way the deal is. My annualized return went from 16.4% to what is showing right here at 20.4%. That's 4 percentages that it went up. And my equity multiple went from 1.49 to 1.61. And that is, if you think about, to me, it made sense immediately, because you take $10,000 in 1 year, and in that same year, as soon as I'm done implementing this, I'm going to save $13,000, and then it repeats itself every year. So it has compounding positive effects to not just the underwriting, but to your ability to operate for an investment that, to me, seems minimal. In this case, it was just a 44-door property, and they're going to walk into the details on how to do that and how it works for larger properties and smaller ones. But to me, it was significant. I know all of us are struggling right now with finding good deals and making our offers more competitive. This could be the edge that you're missing. So I would encourage you to ask questions and pay attention, and let's dive into what is this all about. If that doesn't make sense, I want to stop for a moment in terms of the underwriting and the numbers. I would like to address those, but if there's no questions, then we'll move back to the presentation.
Hey, Hema.
Yep.
I'm assuming with the numbers here that you're showing us, you normalized that cost savings for the number of doors that you are underwriting to as well to make that adjustment.
Wait, say that again, the question?
So the cost savings here of the, what is it, $10,000, 120, is that is, you're obviously dividing that by the number of doors that you're underwriting to, the 44 doors you said?
Yeah, so if you saw in the one, I put the $10,000 and I actually put it in the exterior CapEx, because I didn't want to take 10,000 divided by 44 and then confuse you guys. I really wanted to use just the exact number, but the ultimate sum is still the same. The CapEx budget plus 10,000 from what I originally planned. So that increased my investment. But when you see the compounded effect of the savings of $13,000 year over year for the whole, for this particular one, it was just 3 years. So that manifested itself in just 3-year returns for this investment. But if you have a longer hold, that has a greater compounding effect the longer you have it. And so you'll see, I think, greater results in terms of your metrics, IRR, cash on cash, equity multiple, as you hold the property for 5, 6, 7 years. And I didn't get into the second part of my underwriting because I felt like just this piece would show you enough. But if I showed you the second part on the stabilized, that I was planning on holding it for 10 years, it makes such a difference. And so I couldn't hold this to myself. I have to share this. So I'm excited to get into the conversation. If anybody else has any questions, let me know. If not, we'll move back to Leslie and Kelly.
How did you come up with rubbing back 30%? What was your thought process behind that?
Yeah, my thought process was one, I'm trying to get it to stabilize. And so part of the rubs is you got to have an occupant in the door that is also paying. This particular property was operating at, I think, 57% vacancy. Sorry, I'm going to pull that up. So I started out at 60% physical vacancy, and there were some like 14 or 15 non-paying tenants that are in the process of getting evicted. So it was already at a very low occupancy. So I started off at 30. When you see the second part, which again, I'm not showing the second part of my underwriting, which is the stabilized portion, the rubs actually is greater than 30%. And then you also have to account for, depending on what property manager you have, they may be charging you a fee for rubs. And depending on which one, that may be a percentage base or it might be a flat fee. But nonetheless, it's going to be hard to get to 100% rubs in all your utilities if you have one of those property managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and the laws on rubs vary from state to state. So that is one piece that, for everybody that's here with us tonight, make sure that you're confirming what you are able to allocate back to those residents. Or if you don't know, you can always reach out to us, and we can certainly help support you with some of those recommendations.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And part of that was also trying to be conservative, not to account for the full 100%, but that's a great point. Anybody else?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then in that case, I'm going to go on mute. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm excited to hear what Leslie and Kelly have. Over to you guys.
All right. Let me see if I can do this correctly. So I should be a pro at this. I mean, Leslie, you and I both should be pros at this since we've been hanging out on Zoom for the longest time now.
Yes.
Let me take this into my presentation mode. I'm going to share this one, and then I need to put it into the slideshow.
While she's doing that, everybody, like Kelly said, if you ever forget her name, you can just hashtag on LinkedIn the Potty Princess, and we're all both on LinkedIn too, so we can make sure you get our information. Speaking of everything being online.
How come I can't? Oh wait, there we go. I was like, what's going on here? Okay. Can you guys see this okay?
I can. Yeah, thumbs up.
Okay,
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so let's see if I can also work my right controls because, and by the way, I'm in my home office today, so I'm working off of different screens, which makes it a little more challenging sometimes. I'm sure all of you guys can appreciate that. So, all right, so before we really get into some of the numbers, I just want to layer out for you guys a little bit of, SAS, why, water conservation and water efficiency projects should be, a part of your consideration when you are underwriting, right? At the point of, potentially submitting a LOI or just penciling, the properties. I mean, I think many of us now are, penciling, 50, 60, 100 properties a month, sometimes more, based upon, some of the network that I've spoken with. But this piece right here, while water conservation is certainly a very, feel good thing. And again, that's, part of Leslie's and my passion. That isn't necessarily going to yield you the cash on your property, right? So we're going to share with you guys today how that really is going to get down to, improving the NOI and boosting those asset values. So as Leslie shared earlier, SAS, we are based in Dallas. We are nationwide. So we were founded about close to 25 years ago. We're coming up on our anniversary. So almost 25 years ago, and the organization has evolved considerably. So the founder of our organization, his name is Herb Lee. He actually retired approximately 12 years ago and sold SAS to some private investors. And through that, those private investors wanted to continue to serve the multifamily community through, the preservation of, our world's most precious resource, which is water. So that also is a piece that was coming in line very closely with green lending, because those Fannie Mae and those Freddie Mac green loans were very, very popular many years ago. That loan product is still available today, and it's a great loan product. It's just that the interest rates are so low right now. Why would you jump into, all of the, additional compliance requirements inside of a green loan when you can, take up a different loan product? So the company, and that's part of how I was engaged and how Leslie came in to partner with me here. So we've really taken the organization apart, and through this journey, we identified that there really was not any type of centralized resource that easily breaks down the correlation in reducing your water and sewer consumption on a multifamily property and how that correlates to the cash flow on the property. And a lot of owners that we spoke with, a lot of investors that we spoke with, they would share with us, hey, the only reason why I'm running a water efficiency program is because my lender is requiring me to. And that's where it continued that conversation for us, where it's like, well, did you know that you actually have an opportunity to reduce it, 20 to 40%. And if you're going to hold the property for 5 years, that might be a 20x return on that asset value boost. So that's really what we've done, is trying to bridge that gap. And that's part of why this community is here tonight, right? Because there aren't a whole lot of really great communities for underwriting to really take you into what I call the weeds of it, take you into the trenches of it. So that's really what we do here at SAS, and we're full turnkey. So we're going to educate, we're going to walk through the process with you. And then if we move forward, we are going to, remove all of those inefficient fixtures and put all the new ones in. And then we're going to continue to partner with you post-installation to measure those reductions. But our recommendation is to always reach out to us at the point of, where you have an interest on a property. If the property is, and these are like the top 3 things that you should take note on tonight as to when you should call us. If the property is built before 1995, if the property has not had any major interior plumbing upgrades in the last 5 years, and then in addition to that, if you are looking at implementing or submitting an LOI. This may be your opportunity if you get to that point of best and final, where you might be able to sharpen your pencil even further and not necessarily write this into the business plan, but it gives you a little bit of additional innovative solutions where you can work with your numbers and see where your savings are. And we are very, very conservative when we're working through these particular preliminary assessments for the underwriting process, because we haven't been on the property yet. So what we typically see on average is a reduction on the actual expense line, 30 to 60%. I'll share here in a couple of slides. We actually had a reduction of 58% on a property that was here in Texas. And the way the cap rates have compressed so much in Dallas, their asset value boost on that is well over $1 million. And because they partnered with an organization like SAS, where our crews are able to enter into 50 to 60 bathrooms a day for those larger properties, or you take a product only and then we run it maybe 10 bathrooms a day or something like that. We will help guide you to the right installation process, so that way right after that first full month after installation, you're already recognizing those savings. And that's how we're getting those year one savings. And that's really important. So this is what I want to share with you guys as we are going through into the savings, the numbers. How does this make sense? And Leslie is really great about breaking down what this looks like in the components. So I'm going to have her jump in here.
So what we did here, everybody, if you can see on the screen, there's 3 different scenarios. We're trying to show you just the difference of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, right? So the one on the far left is going to be one that's in Texas. And by the way, the reason why the bold figures at the bottom are also different is because each one of these situations is different, right? So we've got one in Texas where the water rates are going to be not as expensive as the one in Atlanta versus the one in Cleveland, Ohio. So the way that we're able to come up with the numbers that we come up is a formula which consists of where the location of it is due to the water rates. And remember too, your water and your sewer rates are not like your electricity. You can't go out and shop. It's not something that you can call and get a bid on. It is what it is. It's a published rate within that city. So we're able to take your address, whatever you give us, and then come up with that water and that sewer rate, and that, which is a combined rate, right? So if you take the look at these, you can see one of them, the Irving one has 300 units, the Atlanta, Georgia has 880, and the Cleveland, Ohio has 191. The product that we install on each one of these underneath those unit counts, those are the same, because that's what we feel are the best products to offer. Now we can tweak it because we do have some different products that we can offer, but this gives you a good scenario of what we're going to put on the properties. So if you see the one in Irving, you can see that we were able to capture on a this is something that we were able to actually do, was offer them a $57,000 annual savings, which allowed them to have a $950,000 asset boost. And also you can see underneath them where the 950 is, these all have the different cap rates, right? So that's another part of the equation that we can put into our calculator, put in the cap rate, and it's going to show us, it's going to do the calculations for that. So we've got 1 at a 6 cap, 1 at a 7 cap, and 1 at a 5.5. So this just really shows you how moving throughout the nation with all these different cities and all of these different property sizes and shapes and colors and flavors, this is what we're able to offer as a snapshot. Does anybody have any questions on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Leslie. So, I have no idea what the normal, without this solution, what's my normal toilet gallons per,
Oh, good question.
per consumption, as well as the shower heads? Like, what is the really
Ooh.
reduction. I'm curious because I feel like, well, I just got what I bought the home for, and I'm
Yeah.
not really sure what I spent.
Yeah. Kelly, you want to
That
go
is
there?
Sure. I mean, that's a fantastic question.
It is.
So if your property was built before 1985 and it has the original toilets in there, which most of them do, sometimes it turns, you'll upgrade them, you are going to have a 3.5 gallon per flush toilet. And that is going to take forever to flush and forever to fill up. Then in the late 80s, that is when the 1.6 gallon per flush was introduced into the market. And then in the early 2000s, it was actually in 2003, that is when the WaterSense certified 1.28 gallon per flush toilets were introduced to the market. And you see a lot of those out there in new builds, ground up building, new homes. If you go into a retail big box store, typically that's what they will have. We actually install a 0.8 gallon per flush. And we'll talk about this a little bit, but one of the reasons why we partner with the manufacturer that we support, which is Niagara, is because they actually re-engineered the toilet where it is designed for these aging properties and is able to support the aging infrastructure and the consistent usage that you typically see with the residents. We talk about this a lot of time as sponsors and deals, like what are the two reasons why, most people don't want to be, GPs on a deal? It's because the tenants and the toilets. And it's so funny because I just saw this post the other day, I guess over Memorial Day weekend. One of my connections actually had a resident where their sewer line backed up, I guess, in their unit and just completely flooded the unit. So they spent that entire weekend, because it's self-managed, fixing that up. So it's important to do your research on the type of, high efficiency plumbing products that you're placing in, because, while a lot of these efficient toilets that are on the market today, while they look appealing, the performance standards of them are not long-term necessarily. And a property that was built in the early 70s may not be equipped to support ultra high efficiency technology. So those are some of the things that we take into consideration. But with the toilets that we install, those were actually re-engineered with what they call a vacuum assist technology. It's not a pressure assist, so you don't have to worry about, what are those pressurized tanks. It's a vacuum assist that is between the tank and the bowl. And in between the flush, it's created an air pocket. So when you release the flush, that air pocket, that pressure is released and it's siphoning the waste out. And then that 0.8 gallons is rinsing the bowl and pushing the waste. And the Niagara toilets are fantastic because they have the furthest line carry of any other toilet on the market today. So when we're talking about underwriting, we're talking about underwriting with reducing expenses. We don't really talk about underwriting with having to hydrojet your sewer lines because of backups, right? So you don't want to have to, you don't want to get into that situation where you're eroding your cash reserves, for hydrojetting your lines because you've installed product that your property can't support. So just do the research, ask us. We like to, be that resource, even though, we exclusively install Niagara products. There are still some really fantastic products out there that we personally do not install, but we're knowledgeable on them and we want to be that resource. But that's a great question. Does that help?
I was going to say, I'm sure I'm not the only one in this call that learned a little bit more than you thought you would about just a toilet and how it functions. So thanks for that.
Great.
You
We're gonna get
you guys are
flipping
going
your
to come
bids.
away tonight and never look at a toilet the same way again.
Yep.
And that or you're going to think of Leslie and I every time you look at a toilet. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Most definitely.
let's just stop flushing money down the toilet, right? Let's all
Seriously,
improve
that's a
that
good
cash
way to
flow.
put it. That's a great way to put it.
And
I had a follow-on question to that.
Yeah.
And, with the products that you're using, but is there, in terms of underwriting, I got the numbers you provided me in the estimate. I know we're going to get into that here shortly. But is there anything else that we need to be considering in terms of other modifications that a property may need that maybe you've seen that we need to account for when we implement something, this program?
With this type of program, we will complete what we call a full assessment. So we will run our due diligence before an installation commences to, again, ensure that the property will support this type of technology, which 98% of the time it does. There is only one property in the last 4 years that I have had to modify the type of products that we installed as far as toilets, because they were running cast iron plumbing. But something that you should consider, and we'll also touch on this, is those front of the wall leaks. I mean, first of all, water is extremely destructive, right? And then it's expensive. So, being able to shore up the particular water loss that's occurring on each of the properties is really important, and we can help you with identifying that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks. I know you got a lot more, so I don't want to keep taking up questions.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, so the average cost per unit to update, is that consistent with what Hema had indicated on underwriting? I think it worked out to about 230 a door or so. Is that about average?
Well,
So you're using 230 a door?
no, I don't think that's what
I'm
hers
asking.
was. Yeah, that's not hers. So hers is a little bit different, and I'll just speak to this really quick. Hers, so we are a turnkey service provider. We take the Niagara product, and what we typically do is we will come on site, do the full assessment, and then we will install it. Like Kelly said, 50 to 60 doors a day, we're going to knock them out. But that doesn't make a lot of sense for us to do that under about 150 bathrooms. That's kind of our target. It's going to be anything 150 bathrooms, not doors because of the unit mix, but typically 150 bathrooms. We will have our guys come out and knock it out. Now, in Hema's situation, hers is about, I think, 88 total bathrooms. So she's a little bit shy. So we're working with her in a little different way. So we do have a product only price where she can find other resources to help her install it versus the turnkey service. And we can provide that for you as well. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I want to make it, I want to make sure that we're clear. It doesn't matter the size of your property. We would love to have the opportunity to give back in the community to help you and point you in the right directions. And if it makes sense for us to provide some type of solution, whether it's product only, full turnkey, that makes sense. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the numbers that you are putting into underwriting is accurate, because we see this day in and day out on a lot of OMs that are out there where the water conservation is one of the value add recommendations in the OM, and we read all of these OMs and we like to test the numbers if it's not our numbers in there. And it's alarming to our team how aggressive a lot of these numbers are in the OMs. And if you don't have a partner that can walk you through and back you into the numbers exactly, that could be a recipe for disaster. And we don't want that to happen. I mean, this is especially Yeah, especially if you're raising capital, right? You're using, other individuals' money. Other individuals are trusting you with their money. So you want to make sure that that you're doing the right thing and that you've done your homework. So we want to be that resource. So we were talking about, all of the types of, the water use, and Emma had mentioned, like, hey, what are some of the other things that people are looking for on their properties? And this particular graphic here, I think, paints a really great picture because, when you break down your indoor water use on your property, 24% of the total water consumption on your property is actually attributed to the toilets. And that's huge. And then 20% of your water consumption is attributed to the showers. And 19% is attributed to like your kitchen faucets and your bathroom faucets. And by the way, the average person flushes the toilet 3 to 5 times per day. So think about that. All right. And I bet tomorrow you're going to wonder if you're hydrated or not. So we saw this, during shelter in place, where most of us visit, multiple locations throughout the day between school, work, coming home, but then everybody was at home last year. And all of a sudden, all the water consumption on these apartment buildings just went through the roof because everybody's at home all the time. And then everybody is, washing their hands, for the full 20 seconds, which, I don't know why a pandemic required all of us to be super hygienic, but, I guess if we need to, have that as a lesson learned, a positive light, at least we know it's 20 seconds to wash your hands, right?
Yeah.
But through this, what we have found is that 13% of the total consumption on multifamily properties is attributed to water loss, leaks. That's leaky faucets. That could be one of those rogue sprinklers. That could be a leak in the liner of the swimming pool. So these are some of the questions that we'll ask you along the way. And 6% of those leaks on the property are actually coming from your toilets, because the flapper, that little rubber flapper in the tank of your toilet, has an average lifespan of 2 years. So
and
that is going to start corrode.
Sorry, go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead. I just got really excited. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the other piece that you guys should take into consideration as well is, if you have in-unit washer dryers, are those high efficiency? Okay. Is the resident bringing in their own washer dryer? Because if they are, then it may be something that they've picked up on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, and it may not be high efficiency. But what if you're paying for the water, or you're paying for a portion of the water, right? And your dishwashers too. That's an important piece. So breaking into this as we get into the numbers, because Hannah had asked us earlier, like about the different types of toilet flushes. So we rely quite a bit on our data from the assessments that we visit, the properties we visit. But then in addition to that, we also partner with the EPA, and we cite a lot of the national data for multifamily properties from the WaterSense and EPA sites. So the average toilet, the average gallons per flush on a toilet is 2.76 gallons per flush across the country. And what we are installing is a 0.8. So that's what we're recommending for your underwriting. So that's a 72% reduction in consumption. And then when we look at the shower heads, that average is 2.5. And we are recommending a 1.25. So that's a 50% consumption reduction. And the kitchen and the bathroom faucet, those are fantastic as well, because that's a 32% reduction and a 77% reduction. So think about this, guys. When you are underwriting, so many of us are very specific and honed in on the T12, right? I mean, isn't that like one of the things that we just absolutely study and look for opportunities of enhancement or potential errors that we might want to ask questions about. This is where I think that there's an opportunity to expand on that water sewer expense line. If you're looking at the T12 on the water sewer expense line, and let's just say it's, you know, averaging maybe, you know, $4,800 every month, it might spike up to $5,500 during the summer, kind of pop back down. Here's my question though. How do you know that that's the right amount of money for that size property? And that's where we also come in, because we are actually evaluating the number of gallons of water that the property is using on a monthly basis. So if you reach out to us and say, hey, Leslie, we're looking at, you know, this property, it's 40 units and, you know, it's 98% occupancy and, you know, what do you think? Do you think that this T12 is running, you know, pretty healthy on the water sewer expense line? And we're like, no, that's a $12,000 a month water bill. I mean, how many pools do you have out there? What's going on? So we'll help you back in, because on average, you know, a best in class property, each resident is going to use about 30 to 35 gallons of water per day. A good average that could be your trigger is 66 gallons. If you're averaging more than 66 gallons per person per day on that property, then that's a really good indication that there's opportunity to improve. There's either leaks or inefficiencies, but we can look at all sorts of things, and we can get into the real deep numbers, but as we walk through these proposals, we actually will verify the published water sewer rate for your proposal for that property. And then we'll take that and we will put in a very conservative assumption of the existing flow rates of those toilets, the shower heads, the faucets. And then we will help you back into, hey, you know, we are averaging that there are 3.1 residents per unit on your property. And that's a variable. So your property, you might be underwriting, could be average 2 persons per unit, right? So let's adjust that so that number is more real, more workable, more relevant for the property. And then, you know, we have it set where we're running at 3 flushes per person per toilet per day. And that's how we're backing into the numbers. And then your showers, we're averaging those showers at 10 minutes per person. But here's something, not everybody takes a shower every day. So we actually run, instead of running that calculation at 365 days, we're stating that your residents are going to shower 240 days of the year.
I want to pause on that moment really quick, because I'm very numbers and detail oriented, and you might want to rewind this and hit that back. But what she's explaining is, like, she just showed you all the reductions, but also how conservative of an estimate they're providing, which backed up by their analysis on the utilities and all that to say is probably going to perform a lot better. But they're still giving you something very conservative. And if what they provided me that I showed you earlier improved my IRR, my cash on cash, my equity multiple, that significantly, again, guys, like, to me, this was a no-brainer. And I want to say that I'm not an affiliate by any means. I am not getting any monetary value out of this call. But again, I felt that this was such a great tool that we need to have in our tool bag of underwriting to help us sharpen our pencil. I failed to mention earlier that the NOI change in the deal that I presented earlier, there was a $10,000-ish change in NOI at an 8 cap. that increased my value by $236,000. That's not including the cash on cash change. So there was both a value improvement as well as every metric that would give me room to operate, but also to offer a better price. So I want to give a quick time check. Leslie and Kelly, we're at 52 past the hour. I know you got tons of more value, and there's a couple of questions. Ken, if you want to unmute and ask yours, and then I think there might have been another one that came in.
Quickly, first, great information. I see you've referenced like the EPA Water Sense program a couple of times. Let's say like somebody like Hema or Cliff or Bo wanted to get their sort of brand, use the EPA Water Sense branding on their new apartment complex to sort of appeal. How would would you help with that? Because I know it's like on new builds, like it's like 20 or 25% less water, but on like multifamilies, how would they go about getting that, like as well as like the LEED certification?
Yeah, great question. So the LEED certification is, a very complex process, but it is a fantastic opportunity to highlight your property, implement the most efficient technology from HVAC to water, everything. What we are finding though is when you're dealing with like Class B or Class C value add properties, it's difficult to gain a LEED certification in those properties because it is such a massive investment. So sometimes it doesn't make sense on that, but what does make sense is to highlight those improvements around, hey, we have implemented the most efficient technology. We have implemented the Water Sense, certified products, and we will help with those particular logos. So if that's something that you want to share back with your investors, or something that you want to post on the property website or in the brochure materials, every property is different, but we absolutely want to be that partner for you and can help.
All right, thank you. I have other questions, but I'll yield the floor to other people real quick.
We'll help you, Kenneth.
Hey, Kelly and Leslie. Sorry, I have a quick question. Is there like a minimum unit count where it would make sense to contact you guys, or is it simply you run the analysis if the return on cost of this increases the overall return on cost of the deal, then go ahead and pull the trigger? Or do you guys have like a minimum unit count so you even come out and do the installation?
I'm going to answer that there is no minimum. We want to help you on every single property you have, and we can show you the return. We can show you the value on anything you've got. It's just I guess what I was saying earlier to clarify is we've got two ways we can handle it. We can handle it where we come and do the install, or we ship you the product only. So, but we want you to engage us on everything you're looking at and everything you've got.
Fantastic, thank you.
If I can just quickly follow up, go back to Troy's point. Say we have a smaller one. Do the plumbers or installers need a special type of certification from Niagara? Because he's telling us about like a vacuum, like a patent vacuum component of it. Do the plumbers have to have a certain certification or qualification to install them, or can you just get it? Any plumber can do it.
It installs just like any other toilet out there. And if you open up the tank lid, it does look intimidating, but it's strictly designed. It's just a plastic vessel in the tank, and it's designed that way because it's displacing the water. It's an engineering design so that it can still use the same fluid master fill valve, the same tank size, but just less water, right? So it's very simple. It's virtually maintenance free. The toilets have a 15-year warranty on them, which is the the longest warranty of any other products out there. So I definitely, endorse that. But no, they don't need a certification. The one thing though is, on your larger properties where you're doing big renovations, if you're running, maybe 100 or more units, to check with the city codes to make sure that you don't need to pull permits. And that's something that we do whenever we put our installation crews out. We just ensure that we're meeting permit codes, because that's the last thing you want, is to have your building red tagged. But yeah, just for a 1-for-1 replacement, very simple. They install in 10 minutes, super easy. I mean, I've installed plenty of them. I haven't installed any in the last 6 months. It's probably time for me to go back out on the road again. But yeah, it is super easy.
And I want to say one thing really quick. The toilet that we offer does not have a flapper. So it's like Kelly said, it's virtually maintenance free. So the toilets that are out there right now, the 1.6, the 1.28, the 3.5, all of the different toilets that are out there are designed. And if you all leave tonight and you want to go flip your lid on your toilet, you can verify that there's the flapper that has the seal at the bottom that Kelly was talking about that will corrode over time. So if the property that you're looking at to purchase has not a verifiable maintenance plan, where they have a preventative maintenance plan to change out those flappers every 2 years, because on an average that flapper is going to go bad and need to be replaced about every 2 years. So if that's not being done on the property currently, and you look at it and say, oh, you know what, we don't need a water efficiency program here. We have a 1.6, we've got a 1.2. Well, what people don't realize is, sure, you might have that, but that 1.2, if that's not been taken care of, it's going to be acting like a 3.5. So that's why we always say, don't assume, let us help you with that. And then my last piece before I forget of what I was going to say is engaging us. We want you to engage us weekly, daily. We want to take that off your plate to where you're not having to do the thinking. You're not having to say, oh, what is the water rate here? Or, what is this? Just throw it at us. That's what we do all day long as we analyze deals for everybody. So that's just kind of what we want to do, is take that piece off your plate. And then because we know how to get the information accurately, quickly, and we can analyze it very conservatively, and then hand it back to you. So then you can take it and run with it on the next phase.
Yeah, and that brings me,
Yeah.
I think, to a great segue here to hit up like the needs of an underwriter. We find a deal, we're interested in it, we're trying to sharpen our pencil. I wanted to ask you kind of some rapid fire questions. I know we're coming to the top of the hour and we want to respect everybody's time as well as yours. But if I'm an underwriter, I find a deal, what do you need from me to provide an estimate?
Mm-hmm.
What's the turnaround on that? And I know that we've been talking a lot, just toilets, but I know that you do a lot more. So maybe touch up on beyond the toilets, what else is also out there? Kind of those three things.
Yeah, so we just popped up this slide right here. These are the things that we need to be able to run a quick, financial analysis for you. We need the property name and the address. And by the way, if the property is on market and you're considering submitting an LOI, we keep everything confidential, okay? And a lot of times, especially in these very hot markets like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, especially Dallas. Oh goodness, Houston is just out of control right now. A property will list, and we will end up, that first day it's listed, within 48 hours, we typically will have multiple inquiries from different investor groups on the same property. Once we write an analysis for a property, those numbers stay with that property. So we are not going to adjust those numbers unless we're customizing that proposal specific for you. Like you want to see it modeled with, 2.5 residents per unit, or you want to see it modeled with maybe 5 flushes instead of 3 flushes, or you want to run it at 5-minute showers, so we'll customize for you. But just share with us the property name and address, shoot us over the T12. If it's on market, the OM is fantastic because everything we need for the unit mix is in there. Also, if for some reason water conservation is listed as a value add, we like to test those numbers and then help educate if needed. And also if RUBS is built in, we, as a potential business plan, we would like to have those discussions with you as well and help you with how to underwrite that. And if there's a water sewer bill available, that's fantastic as well. But typically, if you're looking at a property that's on market, you're not going to have access to the water sewer bills yet until you get to the DD point. So at that point, we'll just go ahead, Leslie and I will reach out and research the published water sewer rate for that particular area. And that's what we'll use to plug in. And then we'll verify that with the actual bills as we get further down the path with you.
Awesome. And then in terms of, because one thing is underwriting, but then there's also the actual reality on the ground. So from your perspective with clients that you've worked before, how long does it really take for this program to get fully implemented, say in a value add or maybe a stabilized deal? My assumption is it has to deal with whether you can get into the units and do it, or maybe there's another limitation, but I'm curious, just on average, is it year 1? Can it be safe to say year 2, or can we be more aggressive?
So if it's going to be a turnkey where we're going to follow it straight through for you, where we're going to do the installation, from the point of contract with us, 45 days, you'll be done. 45 days, you're going to start realizing your savings. If you're going to be installing yourself, then that's something that we would want to discuss as to what is your plan for that. How many units do you want to try to enter each week or each month? So that way we can determine, is this going to be a 60-day or is this going to be, a 6-month cost of waiting?
Kelly, I like how you always tell people about how we make sense in the phase 1. That's where we're going to be the biggest bang for their ROI.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients that are writing these particular plans in on phase 1 of the business plan. And the reason why they're doing that is because you're able to go in and complete this type of upgrade very quickly and immediately start to see the returns. Whereas sometimes when we write in our business plans and we're looking at updating the flooring or updating, the countertops, backsplashes, a lot of those upgrades are done, in bulk on the current vacant units, but then also as the units turn. So it might take a little bit longer for you to start seeing the benefits of those rent increases from those improvements. So being able to manage those variable expenses beginning day 1 is kind of the secret sauce. And that was proven with a lot of operators through COVID last year who had implemented water conservation, 2018, 2019, even those last installs that we completed in February, right before we went into shelter in place. Oh my goodness, incredible. Because you get into a situation if you have, a line of rent delinquency, right? And if you are rubbing, you may be exposed to delinquency on the RUBS as well. So it's important to be the best steward that you can to protect the cash flow and be innovative about it. And again, we will get into the trenches in these numbers. I mean, we eat, sleep, and breathe this.
No, that's great. And I know that there's a lot more that you wanted to present to us and had prepared. I want to really kind of get to the point where let's just do an open Q&A and maybe that stop sharing. That way folks can hop on and ask their questions. There's a few that have been popping in. And then after all the questions, then we'll give it back to you, Kelly and Leslie, for any really last impactful things that we might have not had enough time to cover today that you want to share with our underwriting group. So with that, I want to really open it up for anybody for questions. I think Trina, you had one, so feel free to unmute and ask it. Or if not, I will read it. Trina asks, is there a scenario where the plumbing does not allow for certain water conservation installations?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's a hot topic too on a lot of the multifamily chat groups on Facebook. There are very few properties where we've had to modify or decline an installation, but that is something that we will evaluate. Take this piece of information with you. If you are underwriting a property and it has cast iron plumbing, that's probably not going to be an ideal solution for the most water efficient plumbing products.
I think that's sunk deep.
Yeah, so think about that. And we actually, we ran across a property in Fort Worth where we actually installed a couple of years ago. I personally was engaged on that property. And that's the property I was speaking about earlier, where we modified the type of products that we installed. That property is now listed. The new investors, they came in, the new owners, they want to reduce the flow rates because we went ahead and installed 1.28 gallon per flush versus our recommended 0.8. And they want us to install 0.8. And I'm trying to share with them, the cast iron plumbing will not support this. And the water pressure on that property is not strong. So you're going to set yourself up. And they're like, well, we're just going to move forward with this. Can we just sign a waiver with you that we're going to release and then release you of any liability? And we had to decline that. And, you know, our recommendation is do not move forward with that, but it is your decision as the operator of the property, what you want to do. But cast iron plumbing, absolutely. Let's do some extra due diligence with you.
Okay, no, that's great. Were there any other questions? I want to bring up kind of closing comments from Kelly and Leslie, if there are no others.
I have one more question for you. So I have some of my teammates are actually property we have under right now. Would it be of any benefit while walk through to try to retrieve additional information in addition to the before requesting? So would that help you kind of hone in on a more precise estimate, or not really?
Troy, you were cutting out a bit. It was hard to understand. I know you mentioned something that you guys are working on a deal, and then something about it being worth, but I missed the rest of it. Maybe you can repeat the question.
I think I got most of what he was asking. Kelly, I think what he's asking is if he's doing a walkthrough or if he's on site, can he capture anything that's going to help us be a little bit more involved with the estimate? Troy, is that kind of what you said? Okay. So yeah, that's where, yes. So Kelly is your,
yes,
she always says,
fill our phones, FaceTime us. I mean, let's go on a virtual walk with you, or text us, DM us pictures. I joke about this, that if Leslie or myself, if we lose our phones and somebody picks them up and they unlock it, they are going to think that we have a really sick hobby, because our camera rolls are full of pictures of toilets and showers and bathrooms and just really odd things. So send that stuff to us. Yeah. And, you know, that's one of our, you know, our superpowers is that we can typically just look at a shower head, look at the actual toilet, and be able to share with you, okay, yes, that's a water waster. You've got money to save.
Yeah. Yes. We want to be that involved with you. We want to have that relationship with you on anything and everything you're doing. We want you to feel like you can engage with us on all aspects of it. So absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
Troy-
Thank you.
But Troy, I guess the back answer of that is the way that we do that initial estimate is because we're not on site, right? We're not. Him and I had a conversation of her property, and even knowing that her property has very old, right? Him, if you can, I do this so many times every day, so you have to remind me, but I'm pretty sure you probably have the 3.5 gallon per flush toilets on site. Even knowing that, because I'm not on site and I'm not doing a walkthrough, in her estimate, I still was conservative and I still pretended that everything is a 1.6 because I want it to be that conservative to be able to show her savings without actually being on site. So does that make sense? But if you have, like Kelly said, where you're a phone a friend for everything toilet related, feel free to call us, text us, FaceTime us, whatever. And we can put those numbers in. If you have done 100% walkthrough and you're like, hey, all of these toilets are XYZ, we'll go ahead and put that in there for you. But just to be safe, whenever we're both doing the initial, that's how we like to do it, is pretend they're all at least 1.6.
Awesome. So we got a part of your underwriting, a part of your due diligence, small property, big property. You seem to have a solution for really any of us, regardless of where you are. So even one of the questions I like to ask, and as we come to a close, is, well, what if I'm not basically any deal and every deal? Leslie will welcome it and will provide you an estimate. So there's some vendors out there that only want you to talk to them after you've gotten on their contract. Well, this is a resource that you can use in a partner in your journey with multifamily investing. Leslie, Kelly, is there any last thoughts, anything that we might have missed that is super important for us to walk away with? If not, then maybe your closing thoughts on this project and this program.
Yeah, I would say, if you have a question about it, don't be shy, okay? And because that's why we created this platform in this community, to be able to give back. Because when I came in, I didn't, by the way, I'm all self-taught on, all of this stuff with the EPA and backing into the number of flushes, creating the calculator and testing it, because there wasn't a platform. So I had to surround myself with, those individuals that could support me. And multifamily investing is a team sport, right? So let's all link arms together and lift each other up and celebrate those successes. And we want to be that portion. So, even if you feel like it's not a good question or your property is too small, still reach out, because you never know. We might even be that people connector for you with your next business partner, right? Your next co-sponsor. So we work with, thousands of investors across the country. So we'd love to support. But one tool that we will share back is we'll share this presentation back. So Hema, I don't know if you want to circulate that out, but then also Leslie and I were talking about this earlier. We're getting a lot of questions about, our calculator and some of the formulas. And I would like to, within this group right here, I would like to be able to share that calculator back with you guys. So that way, if you guys are underwriting something in the middle of the night, and you just want to run some quick numbers without getting into, a big conversation with us, you're going to have that tool. But I want to share the disclaimer on that, we will share this when we send it over, but it's important to make sure that the water and sewer rates are correct that are implemented in that tool and that you understand the functionality. So if it makes sense for us to, come back together again to walk through that, we can absolutely do that. But just another resource for you to have in your tool belt. But don't tell anybody that we gave you that calculator, because that's our secret.
Yeah, and
Leslie
still
and
call
I,
us. We'll miss you.
Leslie and I have polished. Leslie and I have polished that, and and as I shared, I'm self-taught, so our team members and I, we built that together over the years based upon what we saw and what we tested in the market.
And we want you to engage with us on it because, like I said, we want that relationship with you. But we also can see things because we do it all day long. We can see strategies or ways in it that you're just not thinking about because you're busy. I mean, you all are doing so many things. So don't solely rely on the calculator. Throw everything on our plate, and we'll package it up and send it back to you to make sense.
No, that is awesome. And thank you so much. And guys, I did drop both Leslie and Kelly's contact info at the very, very beginning. So if you want to get in touch with them, obviously through the recording, once I send it out, probably by Saturday, but also if you want to save the chat file, open your chat, hit the 3 little dots, and it'll save to your desktop or your computer. Or they can be found both on LinkedIn if you just Google or search their names on LinkedIn. Again, thank you so much, guys, for coming. I know we all have still tons of questions, and there was tons of value that you could have also added, but we wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. Without that in mind, we're not going to do I thought about doing the networking. We usually do like a networking session, but we've gone like 20 minutes over. So I'm going to be respectful of everybody's time and just kind of give this back to you. But thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Leslie, for coming tonight. With that being said, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.